The Dawn Wall. The Challenge of El Capitan. If you visit Yosemite National Park in California, you can hike to the top of El Capitan, a cliff that stands about 3,000 feet high. With no technical gear, you can walk up the incline on the backside of the cliff, on a route through forests and meadows, to El Capitan from the Tamarack campground. You'll walk for 5.3 miles, ascending about 2,000 feet, with a 9% average grade. That's how steep it is compared to flat ground. At the top, you can look out over the Yosemite Valley. However, there's another way to get to the top of El Capitan, climbing straight up the sheer rock face of the granite cliff. Climbers have been ascending the rock formations of Yosemite since the 1940s. El Capitan was always seen as the ultimate challenge. It wasn't until 1958 that a climber, Warren Harding, was able to make it from the base to the top of the cliff over the course of 18 months. That happened 5 years after Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay summited Mount Everest. Harding's route up El Capitan was along the middle of the cliff, called the Nose. Today, expert climbers can ascend that route in less than a day. The Dawn Wall. There are now many routes for climbers to ascend El Capitan in addition to the Nose: the Snake Dike, the Astroman, the Southeast Buttress, and more. One of the most challenging routes is called the Dawn Wall. The Dawn Wall is a mostly smooth granite face. Experts rank it as the most challenging free climb in the world. In 2005, an expert climber named Tommy Caldwell rappelled down the Dawn Wall. He spent time studying the wall, trying to figure out if it could be free climbed successfully. What is a free climb? It's a style of climbing in which climbers use only their hands, feet, and body for support and climbing. A rope can be attached to a free climber, but it isn't used to help the climber up the wall. The rope is strictly for safety, to catch the climber if he or she slips or falls. When using a rope for safety on a climb, the rope must be continually untied and resecured as the climbers move up the wall. The length of the rope, which limits how far a climber may move without stopping to untie and resecure, is called a pitch. A long climb with a safety rope is called a multi-pitch climb. Jorgeson and Caldwell. In 2009, Tommy Caldwell teamed up with climber Kevin Jorgeson to plan their climb of the Dawn Wall. After working on an analysis of the wall for almost 5 years, the athletes began their climb on December 27, 2014. They would stay on the wall for 19 days, relying on a few key tools and plans to keep them alive. The infographics on the preceding pages and the photo essay that follow show what it took for these men to accomplish their wildly ambitious goal. Every afternoon, Caldwell and Jorgeson leave their tents as the sun moves across the sky and no longer shines directly on the cliff. After climbing up a series of rigged ropes, they attempt the next pitch. The climbers use ropes to get to and from their tent and the section, or pitch, on the wall that they are free climbing. People compare the texture of the Dawn Wall cliff to razor blades, thin and very sharp. While climbing, the athletes support their entire body weight on these razor-thin edges of rock. Even though the athletes are lightly dressed, the temperatures are very low, dipping to 30 degrees at night. The climbers ascend later in the day and at night because they want to sweat as little as possible so that their hands stay dry. The cold also helps the rubber on the soles of their shoes better grip the wall. Even the smallest slip could send a climber tumbling. During the day, the climbers return to their tents to eat, sleep, and recover. Their hands are blistered and bruised from the climb. They need time to heal. The climbers make coffee on a small stove, update their social media accounts on their phones, and accept food deliveries. Caldwell, in the green shirt, the more experienced climber, gets through the toughest stretch, pitches 15 and 16 ahead of Jorgeson. It takes Jorgeson many attempts over 7 days to make it across pitch 15. His fingers crack and bleed during each nightly attempt, so he has to go back to base camp and let his fingers recover until the next evening. On the 7th day, he succeeds sending, a climber's term for making it across, pitch 15. Finally, after 19 days on the wall and completing 32 pitches, Caldwell is the first to reach the top of the Dawn Wall at 3 p.m. on January 14, 2014. About 16 minutes later, Jorgeson joins him, and the two men celebrate their accomplishment. After completing the climb, Jorgeson sends out a tweet to share what this climb means to him and Caldwell. To anyone writing about #DawnWall, this is not an effort to conquer. It's about realizing a dream.
For all those 6 years, I had this shining beacon that I was heading towards, and it made me wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, super psyched to try and pursue this dream. And could this actually exist? This really improbable line of holds that goes up this incredibly blank, steep wall. Even the last season, I didn't know if it was going to happen.
It's very possible that we didn't do it this year, and maybe we would never do it, and that it had to be okay.
We ended up having to climb in the winter because the conditions were the best for doing hard climbing, but that also meant that there was some ice fall.
I'd never had a pumpkin-sized piece of ice whipped right by me before. My helmet's in the portal edge, and I can't go anywhere. I'm stuck to this fixed line, and it's either going to hit me or it's not. And I was just like, this sucks.
We were both prepared to fail, but we got on a roll.
Key pieces started to fall into place. And it was clear that, well, the only thing left to do is a push. There's major crack in the feature system, one on Mescalito and one on the wall of early morning light. And we have to connect the two, and there's nothing in between.
Then it came down to this incredibly technical style of climbing. Kevin's expertise really was key in this because he was so good at analyzing everything, the slightest variations in body position, the angle that you step on these tiny ripples. We had to choreograph the whole thing down to a perfect science and sand off any ridges on our shoes, sand off any ridges on our fingertips so that we could make contact with the wall. And then that only got us halfway there. I mean, what it came to in the end is actually building a belief that we could do it.
There was a ton of pressure. I didn't want to hold up our ascent, and I wanted to do it. Dedicated 6 years of our lives to doing this, coming down to this one pitch. It was like the most competitive and intense and emotional roller coaster over those 7 days, battling with that 15th pitch.
I was like, I can't imagine going to the top of this thing without Kevin. We've been working on this together for so long, and I started joking around a lot more. I was like, if I can just seem like I'm totally content to be up here and wait it out as long as possible, that's going to help take pressure off Kevin. The fact that I dropped my phone off the wall and I didn't have to deal with emails anymore, I was like, this is fun. This is a moment in life that I'm never going to forget. And if it lasts a bit longer, that's a great thing. That battle that Kevin was going through was really extraordinary to watch. You see all these great moments in sporting history that are kind of legendary, and I was like, I was the only one right there to witness it.
When you guys finally topped out, was it relief? Was it joy?
grabbing a down-pulling shelf and mantling on top, I just felt like all of the stress and the desire and the focus that had been applied over the last 19 days just fall away. And I was like weightless, and just, there was nothing else to do.
My mind could not really even comprehend what was going on completely. I think I was at a point where I didn't totally care whether I ever finished it or not. I was that much into the process. But actually, now that it's gone, I'm like quite worried about my life. I'm worried about my life a little bit. Yeah.
Do you ever think about some kid out there who might have seen some of all this coverage, and what do you think they might be doing?
This climb became so much bigger than us.
To think that there's some kid out there that's totally inspired, and who knows what that'll lead to, that's the good stuff. It's not what makes it all worth it, because it'd be happy if only our friends and family followed along and knew about it. But if that's going to be the byproduct, I mean, how cool.